provide an overview of some of the ways that thinking in effective altruism has evolved in recent times and what implications this might have for individuals and effective altruism as a community. So please join me in welcoming Bridget to the stage.
Hi everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay, great. Thanks Bianca for that introduction, and I just want to take a moment to thank the conference organisers, although Nelson has already started that off. But I just want to point out that putting together a conference like this is a huge amount of work, and the committee that's done that have put in a lot of time and hours and effort over many months to make this happen, and I think it's a really valuable thing for us all to be able to come together to meet and discuss our different ideas in EA. So I'm hoping you can, I know there's been a lot of clapping already, but I'm hoping you can join me again in thanking the conference committee. Sorry, I've just realised I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay, great. So I'm filling in for one of the representatives from Centre for Effective Altruism, Amy Lebenz, who was going to come and join us, but unfortunately couldn't at the last minute. So today I'm just going to give an overview of my perspective on the effective altruism community and some of the important changes that have happened in thinking and in the community in the last couple of years. So this is just my perspective as somebody who's interested in these ideas and engaged in them. So I think it's helpful to start with, I know everyone here's probably heard of effective altruism and knows a lot about it, but I think it's helpful to go back and really look at what the core ideas of this are, just to get our heads in the right mindset. So effective altruism is all about using evidence and reason to figure out how to benefit others as much as possible, and also taking action on that basis. I think it's also helpful to remind ourselves why we're doing this. Why we're here on a Saturday morning when we could be doing other things which maybe we might think are more enjoyable, although I actually think this is quite fun and enjoyable. So I just wanted to share with you, I guess, some of the things that drive my motivation to be involved in the things I'm involved with effective altruism. So this photo is from an organisation that does search and rescue missions in the Mediterranean. And I know that that's an incredibly complex issue, so I'm not advocating necessarily that more people in EA take on that kind of work. But for me, it reminds me, I guess, of some of the reasons why I do this. So a close friend of mine has been working on these boats recently. That's not actually her, but I couldn't find a good photo of her, so that's somebody else. But she's been working as a doctor on these boats. The stories that she tells me, I think, are a great reminder. So she describes people that have gone through a lot of suffering, they've been forced to leave their homes for reasons of conflict or poverty, and they've often experienced incredible trauma, torture, slavery during their journey, and then they take on a journey which is incredibly perilous and without really any kind of sense of security at the end of it. And she describes that these people who have gone through so much still have this incredible sense of joy at being rescued, and they just have this incredible appreciation of life. Even on being rescued, they still face a lot of uncertainty in what's happening in the future. And to me, that just seems like an incredibly inspiring thing, and a reminder that as humans, we're all striving to have a happy life and to, I guess, experience as much joy in the life and joy in this world as possible. So it's a reminder to do what I can to help more people to achieve that. And if my resources can be better used helping other people to do that, then I think that's a really good way to think about using my resources. And then also it's important to remember that this doesn't just apply to beings that are like us and other humans, that other creatures, non-human animals, have the necessary components to feel suffering and also to experience pleasure and joy. And we have a lot of kind of overwhelming evidence to suggest that animals have quite complicated emotional and social responses as well. So my concern and my empathy should extend to creatures that aren't necessarily like me. And I think also, depending on your ethical framework, that concern and empathy should also extend to beings which might not yet be alive and might be beings that will come about in the future. So somebody asked me recently what landscape or view had been most impressive or impactful for me. And what immediately came to mind was being in the Atacama Desert in Chile, which for meteorological reasons, which I don't really understand, it's one of the best places in the world to view the night sky. And so I remember looking up and seeing the stars and just not realising that you could see that many stars from Earth. And one, it was a reminder of the incredible beauty in this world, but also a reminder of how much is out there and how much could potentially happen. So it feels like humanity might be at the start of its journey, and there's the potential for a whole lot of good to happen in the future, and also a whole lot of suffering if we can get it wrong. But if we get it right and we're able to shape things correctly, there's a whole lot of good that could come about, a whole lot of happiness and joy that could come about in the world. So for me, that's why I think that it's important that we're here and thinking really critically about what we do and what actions we take to bring about a better world. And also why I think it's important for effective altruism to evaluate itself and think about what it's doing as a community. Oops. So on that note, I think a couple of changes that have happened or ways the community has evolved in the last couple of years can be summarised by these two phrases, which also happen to be the last two themes of the conferences, which the Centre for Effective Altruism chooses. So I guess I think they've done a pretty good job of choosing conference themes. But one, this idea of doing good together, and two, this idea of staying curious and being exploratory in how we think about doing good. So on doing good together, I think this is a way that the effective altruism community has changed, an actual change that's happened over time. So I think a few years ago, the emphasis was on how can I do the most good? But in the last couple of years, the emphasis has changed to how we can do the most good as a community, and particularly how we can be more than the sum of our parts if we work together and collaborate. So why has this change come about? I think partly it's because the community has been quite successful, so I think it's a really good sign. So that there are more talented people that are interested in these ideas. So that means that what the types of activities we could be doing is a lot more diverse, and you can kind of start to take on different types of activities. And I also think another way that the community is being quite successful is in attracting more philanthropic support, and that's also changed the emphasis on the activities within the community and put more of an emphasis on collaborating and thinking about how we can do good in ways other than just using our donations for good. And I also think that as time has gone on, the community has gotten a more developed understanding of how to do good, which makes sense. Like, the more you engage in a topic, the more you can refine your ideas and beliefs and your, I guess, methods of making things happen. So I think that's another reason for more of a change to a community perspective. And just as an example of that, this is a picture that I've stolen from a talk given by Owen Cotton-Barrett, and it's available to read in the EA handbook, which is released by the Centre for Effective Altruism. And it shows this idea of comparative advantage, which is probably familiar to a lot of people here, but just to revisit it quickly, is the idea that when you're considering what you should do, you should not only consider your own skills, but you should consider the skills of others and how your skills might complement others, and how you should fit them into to consider your impact as a whole, as a community. So in this diagram, you can see that Hermione's the best at everything. Hermione. So if we're thinking about who should be doing the potions task, If we're just looking at Hermione on her own, then it seems like she should do the potions task, or it might seem that way originally. But then if Hermione can't do everything, unfortunately. She doesn't have access to enough time turners to do that. So the others have to do something. So considering in that perspective, it's clear that Harry isn't so good at reading or gaining that skill. But he's not too bad. He's pretty good at potions. So even though Hermione's better than him at potions, Harry should do the potions. And Hermione really needs to pick up the slack from the other two in the kind of reading books skill there. So that's just to point out that when we're considering what we're good at, we should keep in mind what the community needs and where we might fill gaps. And then on to the second kind of point. So I think it's really important to think about effective altruism as a question, so really engaging in this idea of how we can do the most good. And I think that's also something that's changed a lot in the community in the last couple of years. So the reasons for that, I think, I think that's not really a change in the community. I think that's the way the community has also been, but it's been emphasised a bit more that we should really dig into these questions of how we do this and why we do this. So I think the reasons for that are that our understanding of the world is changing. So the way that we can do the most good is going to change as we gather new information. But also more importantly, our world itself is changing pretty dramatically. So therefore that means that the ways in which we can do the most good will change. And I think it's just worth taking a moment to describe this concept of updating. When I first got interested in EA, I heard this term used a lot, and I didn't really understand what people meant, and I thought it was a bit jargony to talk about updating. But I think it is actually a really good concept to have in the back of your mind that as you gather new information, then you adapt your beliefs and your models to fit with that information. So what do I think this all means for the community and for us? So I think some of the implications of staying curious and doing good together are that we should have an open mindset and be okay with being wrong, be okay with needing to update our beliefs or updating our beliefs. I think it's important to share your insights and perspectives. So if you do something and you learn something from that action, then by sharing it you can, I guess, improve the impact of what you've done, because other people will be able to learn from your actions and your experiences. I think it's important to consider your personal fit and comparative advantage. Consider how you can help others in the community. So this idea of 5-minute favours. If you talk to somebody and they're doing something that you think is a good thing to do, if there's a small way that you can help them, then that's a really powerful thing to do. And then also I think that you should consider if you should be working with others in the community. So if there's some people that are working on a project which you think you could help with, then it would be a good idea to perhaps consider if you should be involved. And in terms of us as a community, I think it's important for us to, I guess, obviously strengthen our connection and coordination. So as the community grows, being able to coordinate is going to be quite difficult, but it also becomes more important. And I think a way that we can continue to improve that and make that happen a bit better is to continue to have good communication standards, especially online. And when I say good communication standards, I mean really explaining why you believe something, and if somebody disagrees with you, I guess disagreeing back, but in a very kind of considerate manner. I also think that this having a curious community approach means that we should be valuing the work of others, diversity of thought and perspective, but that also means that we should continue to debate ideas and share knowledge. So if somebody values something and you don't really understand why they do, or you don't think they should hold those values, I think first of all respect that they might value something that you don't, but still question them on it and discuss it and debate it and work out why you disagree. Okay, so I just wanted to also quickly just give a rundown on kind of the landscape of, or some of the organisations involved in effective altruism, to, I guess, make you aware of what's going on in this community and some of the changes that have happened in the last couple of years. So the Centre for Effective Altruism, they're continuing to implement projects and develop strategy to help create a flourishing community. So one of the major things they do is run the EA Global conferences and support conferences like this, the EAGx conferences. They've also, in the last couple of years, I guess had a bit more of a shift towards wanting to invest in the community. So there's also been a round of community building grants and also a round of EA grants, which are aiming to, I guess, help to promote or support work that's happening from the community. And also they're hiring for a number of roles at the moment. So if you're good at operations work in particular, and you're interested in working at Centre for Effective Altruism, you could apply, but applications do close on Monday, so you'll have to do that quickly. And then 80,000 hours, so they're producing a lot of content on different ways to use your career to do good, and they've really grown their subscriber base as well. And I think one of the best things that's, I guess, best changes or new things in the effective altruism community that's come about in the last few years is the 80,000 Hours podcast. I don't know if many people here have listened to it, but I think you definitely should. And it's also hosted by Rob Woodland, who's originally from Canberra, so it's nice to hear an Australian accent on that as well. And then just to quickly go through, so Rethink Charity is an organisation in Canada, and they have recently, so they run the local Effective Altruism Network and also students from High Impact Charity. And they've also started a new project called Rethink Priorities, which is aimed to do foundational research. And then GiveWell, so they're continuing to grow. Last year they moved $117.5 million. They've hired head of growth. And they're undertaking more research into promising new projects with their GiveWell incubation grants. And I think we'll hear more about that later today from Catherine Hollander. And I realise that I'm running out of time, so I might just wrap this up. But just to point out that all of these organisations are doing really interesting work, and it'd be worthwhile Googling them and having a look at all their websites. So I won't go on that too much more. Okay, and then, sorry, just to give some more specific ways in which the community has, I guess, thinking the community might have changed in different areas is, I guess, more of a focus on policy and government, particularly as it relates to improving human welfare in the present. More of a focus on corporate outreach, meat alternatives and wild animal suffering when considering non-human animal welfare. And also, in terms of influencing the long-run future, I think there's more considerations to strategy of AI, as well as considerations of technical AI safety. And more emphasis on reducing global catastrophic fire risks. And I've noticed that Bianca's getting closer and closer, so I'm just going to leave that there. And just, these are the principles put forth by the Centre for Effective Altruism, and I think they're a nice thing to have in the back of your mind as you go into this conference, and I'll let you read them. And then I'll finish up there. So thanks very much. I hope you have an excellent conference. And